I'm glad you're looking at your phone now because that means you might not look at it when we start the show.
Listen, bitch.
And welcome back to the Midday Show. I am Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina. We're going to talk about the Field of Dreams. You're going to tell us where Friday the 13th came from, because I actually don't know this.
It came from the calendar.
And I specifically said to you, I said, is it cool? And then you didn't respond to me for like 5 seconds. So then I got nervous. And then you were like, it's cool. It's cool. So we're going to talk about where Friday the 13th came from. And then we're going to talk about just like where we are heading with COVID, because whether we like it or not, it's going to dominate heading into the fall. So rather than talk about it a month from now when like it's saturated and everybody's already worn out over it, there are some things that are really interesting, and I think you and I can dive into today. But like
more interesting than typical,
but not more interesting than how you are feeling today.
I am good.
Okay.
I am ready. Tonight we make our last. This is our last baseball travel weekend of the summer.
Okay.
So I will be traipsing into the great state of the swamps of Jersey, if you will.
Okay.
And
yeah, and then this is it. Then it's like full-blown football season, because it's, I mean, for me, I just sit in the crowd. But
this
for my
summer
kid,
was insanely fast.
Isn't it though?
It was uniquely, and I know like they say like as you get older, it goes by faster.
Which is true. Just wait.
This summer was unbelievably quick.
But you know what? I when people say stuff like that, I think back to like graduation. Did you go to graduation? Do you go?
So graduation is tricky for me. I typically don't go because I can't go to every graduation.
No.
If you get what I'm saying.
There's one graduation. I mean the part, not the parties, but the ceremony.
Oh, the actual graduation. I typically don't go.
You know why?
Why?
Because it's boring as hell.
I mean, it's not necessarily something I look forward to.
But anyway, my nephew graduated, so I went.
Okay.
And so it's June, whatever, first week of June. So when I think back to that seems like forever ago.
Yeah, it does. But it still went fast.
This is what I always used to think like in summers, because I agree. You wake up, you're in August, and you're like, where did the time go?
Yes.
And it seems like, but then I'd always talk to my sons, like, remember baseball season?
Yeah.
Remember when it started? Even when the regular season ended in June, like it seems like we haven't had a real baseball game in a long time. Now travel ball is different because it goes on, but I agree with you. It always seems like it goes super fast.
Yes,
but when you think back to things, they seem like a long time.
Maybe it wasn't as fast as we thought. Lisa says, "Come hang out in the dirty Jersey." Do you go to the beach? I feel like you're not a beach person.
Come hang out in the dirty Jersey. Oh, I thought she was talking about like what you had on. I was kind of looking at your dirty Jersey. I get it.
You're not a beach person. I know.
I hate it. You know what? And I was just talking to someone. Who was this? One of my friends just told me the same thing. Oh, I know who it was. I like the beach for 2 hours. I don't read. I mean, like I'll get in the water and stuff like that, but like you can only swim in the ocean for so long. And not because of sharks, just because of like the waves go in, the waves go out. If you get it in your mouth or whatever, it's just like you can't get it in your eyes.
You're an adult. Just don't get it in your mouth.
Well, I know, but it's just
keep your mouth.
So anyway, I don't, like I said, I don't. With the sand, it's just a mess. I would like to walk up and down the beach. I love to people watch. But people watching is much better on the boardwalk than it is on the beach. I will do the boardwalk. I will buy the overpriced food, the fries and the ice cream and whatever. But one day on the beach for me is more than enough.
I have been told like that time does not exist for me. Like I'm oblivious to time. Like I don't know. Like I'm not a timely person. Like I've never let time affect like when I show up to something or what I do. Like
we've noticed.
Yes, ever. And so for that reason, like the beach, like that is my vibe. Like that is, and here's the crazy part. Like I don't even tan. Like I burn awful. Like I like that, but like I love the beach because it's just like the whole vibe of it. You're just away from it, the ocean in front of you. It's just, I don't know. That whole thing I'm into. I could be at the beach for weeks and I would be okay.
I don't get it.
You can't do it.
I don't understand how people like, I just lay there, I shut my brain off. I don't know how people shut their brain off. Like, don't you get bored?
Don't I get bored? No, I don't, because I'm usually doing stuff. Like I'm still reading or on my phone, or I'm like swimming in the, like I'm still doing things. Conversation, like I'm still doing lots of things. So the beach is great because you can sit there on your phone. The beach is great because it's an environment where like everything else is away. It's this, you may not be able to understand this. It's like perspective. Like you're sitting there.
Wait, let me jump in. Perspective is too far over my head for me to get.
Yes, because you're worried about getting sand in your mouth because you can't keep it closed long enough. And I'm looking at the ocean and I'm like, right now, I like perspective. I can think about, I can call anyone I want. Like I can do anything I want to do right now looking at the ocean.
You can't do that sitting in your bedroom?
It's not the same because you're confined by the walls and the things around you. It's perspective.
I want to
understand. I didn't expect you to understand.
I will say this.
I didn't expect you to understand.
Listen, and you're not the first. I do not get the beach.
No, I know you don't.
And there is a therapeutic. I could listen to waves crash for an hour.
Yes.
But my idea of the beach that is enjoyable is like 7:30 till it gets dark.
Yeah.
Like put me in a sweatshirt.
Yep.
And to go out at noon when there are 10,000 people there and you're staking your claim.
You're going to the wrong beach.
You know, for that every one girl that walks down in a bikini that you're like, oh, that it's just not worth the aggravation. It's just not.
Yeah, I mean, have you ever been to like Hilton Head? Have you ever been to like Chesapeake? Like you ever been? So you need to go to like a private beach, like somewhere where it's not as crowded. Like we were at Topsail earlier this year. Topsail's an island. Like there's
I've been people, there. I've been there.
Okay, but so like it's not crowded. Like I don't know. I'm into the whole vibe.
I will tell you this and this will wrap it up. When my ex and I went to Jamaica, the greatest pool I've ever been at, and not just because there was drinks and food and you didn't need any money, and it was the nicest with the pool and the rafts, and it was just awesome. We were there 3 days, 4 days. Like the last day we were there, and the pool, the beach is right there. You can see it. And the water was as blue. It was not like an Atlantic Ocean. Like it was blue.
Yeah.
And the only reason we knew that is because we went out on a paddle boat and some guy took us out. And you're like, it was Crayola blue.
Yeah.
The last day we're like, we should, since we're 50 yards from the beach, we should probably go lay on the beach for a little, because people will make fun of us if we went to Jamaica and just laid by the pool for 3 days. Yeah. But we had no desire to go to the beach because the pool was so nice. Yeah. That's my world.
Okay. I feel bad for you.
I know you do.
This is one, there's a lot of different ways to go about this.
We're going to do COVID before we do Friday the 13th?
No, let's do Friday the 13th first. You know, I'll just make a different banner. Go ahead.
Oh, you didn't make the Friday the 13th one?
I didn't make any of the banners. We are doing this thinking.
Oh, sorry. I didn't know.
Skull.
Well, I thought COVID was the most, it's our deepest and most intellectual. I thought we would save it till the end.
So you're going to tell us where Friday the 13th came from.
Well, this is going to shock you. There's no real great answer, but there are multiple speculative answers. One of them was the Knights of Templar.
Okay.
In like 1307.
Okay.
Some king who was afraid of them and did not want to be overthrown, like had them all arrested and most of them killed. I don't know if they were killed on that day, but it was Friday the 13th.
What was the first thing you said? Templar?
Knights of Templar.
Help me out. What Knights of Templar? I'm lost.
What do you mean?
I don't know what the Knights of Templar were.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, you said it as if I should know that.
I associated it with Da Vinci Code. Weren't they the?
I don't know. I thought you said it as if it was common knowledge and I should know what this is. So then I was like, interesting. Like
I was just going to read through it like I knew.
Go.
And then you called me out on it.
I know. I'm sorry.
You're not. I'm sorry at all. So anyway, that was one of them.
Okay.
Then as you get further along, there is, I did not know this, but in biblical terms,
Okay.
Friday was unlucky.
Okay.
Why? It's the only time I've ever heard of Friday being a bad thing.
Yeah.
But they went through all kinds of things, everything from like Jesus's arrest to something about the Noah and the flood, which is all bunk, by the way. I mean, even the churchgoers know that there was no Noah's Ark. But be that as it may, and I'm sure we'll get comments on that. But like, not to divert, but I had a friend who was the preacher at a church I used to go to. I was like, tell me this thing about, like, how am I supposed to believe Noah's Ark? And they got 2 of everything.
Yeah.
He's like, you're not. It's a fable. It's supposed to give you a message.
Sure.
There's no boat.
Sure.
I was like, okay, thank you. Because that's what I was thinking too.
Okay.
So, but anyway, and then like the pagan holidays, which is where Christmas Day actually came from, but a lot of the rival pagan holidays turned Friday into a happy day, like the goddess of love, the goddess of sex, and all these. And it was very, it was with maybe just the female realm. And then, so Christianity came into further rivalry with Friday.
Okay.
So, then in like 1907, some dude wrote a book called Friday the 13th, and he just combined the superstitions of unlucky 13, because historically there have been lots of things they see as 12. The 12 days of Christmas, the 12 months of the year. The 12 is a very number, a very round, finished number. Sure. It's a square. I guess every number can be square, but
I get your point.
And 13 is that extra, and it's unlucky. Okay. So he wrote a novel in like 1907 and combined them and kind of ran with it. Okay. And that's where it's gone on. But as it goes further, Taylor Swift, did she have an album called 13? She had
an album called 23.
She had 1989.
Okay.
Did she have a single called 30? She's been writing she says 13 is her lucky number.
Okay.
And she goes through all these things of where 13 has played out in her life. Okay. So, but anyway, whether it's the original one, they go back to the Knights of Templar. I think that's how you say it.
Okay.
But then there's, and they can pick out historically bad, like plane crashes. Tupac was shot on Friday the 13th.
Okay.
But there's enough, like, you can find...
Well, you pick any day,
yes. And you can find bad things that happen.
Yeah.
So, but those are the 2 big ones of the biblical rivalry and the Knights of Templar.
I had no idea that Friday was considered, like, unlucky in the Bible.
I could not imagine a world where Friday is a bad day. Supposedly, and I will throw this in, I read this in there while it was talking about something about Friday and women and the fertility gods and something, but Friday was associated with women in that realm. So it was seen to be a lucky wedding day.
Okay.
The lucky wedding day was Friday. Okay. Which very few people get married on Friday, which is probably the reason for the divorce rate.
Well, that's coming back a little bit.
Because it's cheap.
Yes. More people now than in a very long time. I hear all the time people getting married on Friday. Some of it is because it's cheaper. Some of it too is just like overbooked.
Bookings.
Like just bookings are out of this world with what's happened in the last 18 months. So like people are like, you want to get married on Friday? And they're like, why not? Yeah.
Yeah. No. And this is like, obviously I had a traditional way. I say obviously because everyone, you're supposed to and whatever.
Yeah.
To do it again, so I'm just giving you, we should do a show on marriage ceremony advice I can give to you. The ceremony itself, very few people care about. Very few.
Yes. No, that's very true.
The reception is what matters. So the aspect of, like, if you want to go get married at the Justice of the Peace on a Tuesday afternoon, but like we're having our reception at such and such a venue Friday night at is not a terrible idea at all, because if the vast majority of people are being honest, they only go to the wedding because they have to. Like, you look like a jerk if you only go to the reception and skip the wedding, but nobody cares about sitting through your wedding.
I've always wondered how many people actually, when they're getting married, how many people during the wedding, they even notice that people are there. Like when you're actually standing up at the altar, like do you even realize who's in the church?
I mean, probably.
Okay.
It's a lot of. It's a lot, and they're always in the summer. I say always. Most of them are in the summer. Some of them are ridiculously hot. How many are you worried about the degree?
No sound right now. Let me figure it out. I think it just happened.
So they can't hear me? No one can hear what
are you-
when did they hear? What's the last thing I heard?
Are you devastated?
What's the last thing they heard?
How devastated
It
are
says
you?
my mic, it looks simple now.
Keep your mic
Midday
muted.
show went off. Someone just texted me.
Okay.
What did you
Hold
do?
on.
The hell did you do?
Hold on. We're gonna be fine.
I don't think you're fine.
They got us back now. All right. So here's what you're gonna do. You can chuck the mic because that's how we fixed it. You're gonna talk a little louder. I know that's hard for you.
What?
To talk a little louder. So real quick, just give them a rundown at the very end there. The last thing you said, you bowling, you weren't able to do it. You should have put your foot down. I think they heard the story, but I don't think they heard the
I think
ending.
it's God's way of protecting me that I should have thought badly about my mother. He just kind of stepped in and said, you will regret telling people that your mother kiboshed your bowling evening on your rehearsal dinner.
Okay.
But yes, I agree with you. The rehearsal dinner can be a lot of fun.
The first night, even like we have this big like Christmas in July party at our family farm, and it's on Saturday. And Saturday's great. Like and we've had years where like there's 100 people there. Like it's been big some years. This past year,
I've still not been invited.
You still have not been invited to this. So
that hurts.
Invitations are tight.
That hurts.
Invitations are tight. So one of the things, that I always say about it is Friday night is better than Saturday. And people are like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, because Friday night, everybody's excited, all the possibilities of Saturday, everyone's in a good mood, everyone's fresh, it is. So I am always a big believer, like it's always that first moment, whatever you're doing, that initial night, the initial moment. Do you guys have
high school class reunions?
Not really.
We've only had a couple.
Uh-huh.
Our class has been very lazy about it, but there's like a reunion event and then there's like a night before everybody's meeting at some bar.
Yeah.
And that night is always better.
Yes.
I agree
Always.
100%.
Always. Real quick, you wanted to talk about the Field of Dreams game.
Oh yeah, it was just cool. It was super cool.
Yeah.
And the movie is the funny thing about it, it's one of my top 5 favorite movies of all time.
Okay.
And obviously, baseball is very near and dear to me and my family. But the funny thing is, as a youngster, when it first came out, I hated it. I thought it was corny and stupid. And I was in my early 20s.
Okay.
I was doing radio in Baltimore, and I had a friend who was older, in his 30s or whatever. And when I was telling him why I thought it was stupid, he just very calmly said, "That's not what the movie was about. I think you should watch it again."
Okay.
And I said something else because I was young and brash and knew everything. And he just very calmly again said, "That's not what the movie was about. You should watch it again and try to figure out what the movie's really about."
Okay.
And then I watched it again, and now it's one of my favorite movies ever. But
Okay.
it is as like, why would you ever go to Iowa? It is a bucket list thing for me to see the field. And if you saw the overhead, the tourist attraction field where they film the movie's right over there.
Right.
But no, I thought it was. Now I didn't watch a lot of it. I watched a lot more of the Eagles-Steelers preseason game because my son's an Eagles fan. He wanted to watch the Eagles game.
Okay.
But no, they need. It is like the Little League Classic. It's just different, and it's a novelty aspect, and I understand how. But there's enough Midwest teams. You get the Cubs, you get.
Oh yeah.
Because Jerry earlier said it would have been better if the Yankees had won on the walk-off. I was like, I don't know. When they introduced the first place, when Kevin Costner said the first place Chicago Cubs, the roar was loud.
Oh,
like
it
in
was
Iowa,
really loud.
It is Midwestern, and you get the Rockies there, you get the Tigers there, you get Minnesota there, you get the Cubs and the Royals and the White Sox and the Cardinals. There's enough Midwestern teams that you could kind of run it for a while, and I think it'd be cool.
It's amazing it took them this long to do it, honestly.
Well, I think because of the success of the Little League Classic, that they were like, hey, maybe this is something that we can do these other things, and it's worth it. I don't know. It just for a Thursday night game in the middle of the dog days of August, it had the internet abuzz.
Yep. No, it was worthwhile. It's amazing they I know you can't really duplicate it with every baseball movie, but it's amazing they don't take more advantages like that to whether it's The Natural or whether even something dumb like basketball, like things. It's amazing they just don't try to capitalize on like those types of things more often. Because that's what it's all about. Like you look at what football's doing with Nickelodeon, and they have like the goalpost stuff and all the graphics and things. And even like you look at basketball and like how like ingrained basketball is with pop culture, like who's sitting in the front row, like which movie stars in front row, and even just like famous movies, whether it's Hoosiers or Above the Rim or whatever it may be. Like the league doesn't necessarily run away from those things. It's like, here, use our players, like put our players in the movie, or here's a throwback uniforms, or they've used uniforms before from movies, and so it's just funny that it's taken MLB like this long to like accept it, like to kind of like dive into it and like put their arms around it. I just feel like it was a no-brainer. And
also, Miguel Cabrera has 499 home runs, and a little tweak. I don't know how many guys have hit 500. I should have looked. Okay. But it's rare air. There's not a whole lot of 500 home run guys, maybe 20.
Yeah.
And he has 499, and they had one more game left in Baltimore. Okay. And then they were going home for a 6-game home stretch. Okay. And their manager said, nope, he's playing tomorrow. We're not testing the baseball fate. And I'm thinking, like, Detroit's not making the playoffs. They're about a 500 team, but they're not. Right. And this 6-game, how many more tickets are they selling in Detroit? Not just for, Friday, but Saturday or Sunday. And people like, I can't go Friday. I can go Sunday, so we'll just root for them not to hit it until then. Right. And this 6-game stretch, and they did end up sitting them. Yeah. And I don't know if ownership called. I don't know who called. Right. But on Wednesday night, when he was one away, they said, nope, he's playing tomorrow. And then Thursday, he didn't play anyway. So he's got 6 shots to hit 1 home run back home in Detroit.
To try and make it happen.
This doesn't happen all that often. And Miguel Cabrera's got 499.
Before we dive into COVID, do you want to do? We had a ton of comments on the show yesterday. Did you go through and read some of them? Did you read them at all? So I'm not going to be able to share the actual comments, but I do want to go through and read some of them because like the participation was high, and some people asked some good questions. I made some silly mistakes. Like I think it'd be fun to kind of go through them real quick.
Emily Watson.
If you want Emily Watson, which we will definitely talk about.
And I'll tell you, this is what's funny about it. When they commented, I thought, oh my God, one of us is calling her Emily Watson. And I was like, I know it's Emma. But just when you get talking and you get rambling, and I didn't know if it was you or me.
Oh, it was definitely me. It was definitely, well, the worst part was I had someone send me a message and I had the red cup and they were like, whatever was in the red cup must have been good. You kept calling her Emily Watson throughout the show.
And apparently there is someone famous named Emily Watson.
Yes, I think that.
She's an old actress.
I'd like to sound smart and say I subconsciously was like pulling that out. I did not know that, but I looked it up and there is an Emily Watson. Yeah, I didn't know. Yes, no. Anyway. So so one of the questions was, which is the better Disney baseball movie, The Sandlot or Angels in the Outfield?
You're gonna be shocked to hear this.
Probably not.
I've never seen Angels.
Okay, I'm a little shocked. No. Never seen Angels in the Outfield.
No. And I will say this too. The first time The Sandlot falls into one of those categories, I never saw it in the theater because it's the greatest. It's the greatest, and I love The Natural. I love Field of Dreams. I think Major League is brilliant. When I'm talking about the higher, I go all the way back to the Bad News Bears. My expectations for The Sandlot were so high that I didn't really love it at first, and it's one of those that every time I watch it, I like it a little more. Yeah, I like it much more now after probably seeing it 4 or 5 times than I did originally.
Okay. Angels in the Outfield's enjoyable.
Did you see the Danny Glover version?
Yes.
Or was there a different?
No, the original. Multiple. Oh yeah, no, the original. The original's it's worth a watch if you haven't seen it.
I've never seen it.
It also, and I cannot believe I'm blanking on his name.
Tony Danza?
Well, he's in it, yes, but the kid at the time is now huge, and I cannot believe I'm forgetting his name. He was in Inception. He played Robin and some of the Batman stuff. Oh. Joseph Gordon
I don't know.
Levitt. Joseph Gordon Levitt. He is the kid in the movie, which a lot of people have kind of like forgotten about that. So that one's pretty good. Emma Watson, obviously, she probably won't date you if you call her Emily, which I thought that was pretty good. That's pretty great.
End the sentence with, she probably won't date you. Period.
Period. Yeah.
You don't need anything beyond
it. Ben said Downey would not make a great Captain Sparrow. He doesn't have the talent for it. Just saying, if he would have played Captain Sparrow and not Johnny Depp, that movie would have flopped big time. I kind of agree with that.
I mean, this is what's hard about things like that. I don't know, because Downey is incredibly talented. And I don't think there was anything in Johnny Depp's career up until then that would have given you the impression that he could play a swashbuckler. And if Robert Downey had tried, like now that we see Johnny Depp, we don't see anyone else.
Yes. But this is what
I think Downey could have done better than you think.
But this is the genius of Depp, is like the thing that's perfect about Sparrow is like there's always a plan, but like he falls into it. Like the plan isn't the plan until it's the plan.
That's the writing. That's not.
Is it though? I mean, but part of it is him playing it off that way. Like one of the scene that I've actually debated this with people, the scene where the boat is sinking and he steps onto the dock like right at the last second and the boat is officially completely underwater. Right. There's some people could play that like you're looking at your watch, like, obviously the Pyron, but like you're killing time and then like, oh, the dock's when you step onto it. And like, but the way Depp plays it, it's like it was exactly what was supposed to happen, even though he knows that's not what was supposed to happen. And so like there is that's a Depp thing. Like I don't know if Downey would have really been able to play like that kind of oblivion to it, if that makes sense.
No, I totally agree. I think I heard Marlon Brando. God, I couldn't. I'm rattling through all the things he played. I was going to say The Godfather and ask for help, but yeah. I think Marlon Brando once said the only 2 actors he would really pay to see and I don't know what year this was Sean Penn and Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
Now, there are others that are rather successful, and I don't know if I got that quote exactly right, but he has always been regarded as, the best of the best. Now, he's had a little rough personal life.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he's the greatest guy on earth, but.
Did we bring up Edward Scissorhands
when
we were talking? You mentioned it, but we didn't really. Okay. I don't love the movie.
I would have to see that one again.
It's been a while since you've seen it.
It's one of those that, like, when I first saw it, I was like, I don't. It's another. I have to see The Matrix again because the first time I saw The Matrix, I thought it was the dumbest thing I ever saw.
Dumbest thing ever. There's something about like
Mary.
Yes, and like Edward Scissorhands and like The Burbs. I'm trying to think. Like, what would you? I don't even know what you would call that. Like genre, like that. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not It's not like. It's almost like in-home sci-fi. Like I don't even know what to call it.
I know what you mean. It's Scissorhands is Tim Burton, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
But I don't even know whatever that. Like I'm kind of not in on that
I
whole genre. I've never really like truly enjoyed it. What is your take on the Free Britney movement for the pop star Britney Spears?
Did you hear her dad resigned?
Her dad resigned from the conservatorship. For those of you who don't know, we've actually talked about this.
Yes. How do you not know that? You should watch every episode from beginning to end.
And then there was another one. Karl Malone and John Stockton were the best basketball players of all time for the Utah Jazz back in the 90s. I do not disagree with that.
Best basketball players of all time for the Utah Jazz. Well, of course.
Yes.
For the Utah Jazz. Yes.
Yes. No, not much debate there.
No.
I agree with that. So those were some of the comments the other day.
But the debate was, is Malone better than Barkley? And we both agreed no.
We decided
You're just
no.
a little harsher on Malone's career than I was.
Yeah.
You thought he was overrated. Like, I don't even know. You just thought he's very fortunate to be in the situation where he was. If he'd have played on it with a different lineup and not with John Stockton, he wouldn't have been beat. He's still been damn good, but
not what he was. So we might. I mean,
did we get any comments from either Emma Watson or Emily Watson?
No.
Is Emily Watson still alive?
I would assume.
I don't know. I just knew she's an old.
You don't know? I would assume Emily Watson is still alive. So you have no idea who she is.
No.
Emily Watson. Oh, I bet you do. I bet you do.
Because she has no idea who I am.
No, that's what makes it fair. I bet you do. If we actually sat down and like went through it, she was in The 12th Night. You know The 12th Night?
Shakespeare, isn't it?
It is Shakespeare. She was in
she's
War.
That old that
she was in War Horse. She was in The Theory of Everything. She's in The Kingsman. She was in the HBO series Chernobyl, which was fantastic.
Okay, The Theory of Everything. Is that the computer one? Oh no, that was The Imitation.
That's The Imitation.
The Theory of Everything is about what's his name? The physicist dude, Stephen Hawking.
Yes. And how he met. And
I saw War Horse.
And how he met Jane Hawking, I think it was. Yeah, so there.
Did she play his first wife?
No. I think she might be too old to play the first wife.
Okay. I don't know.
I
have seen The Theory of Everything and I've seen War Horse.
Okay. All right.
But what was a better movie than The Theory of Everything was Imitation.
Imitation Game is very good.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed Imitation. You could watch it on Netflix for a while. It's really, really good.
Are you still looking for comments?
We're just flipping through here. Bill, diving catch ends the Iowa's chance. Nebraska is coming to South Wayne Sports, Empty Hills. So Nebraska is going to be joining Little League teams coming for the Little League World Series.
There we go.
Just getting updates as we go. Heather says Emily Watson is only 54, so she's not old. Does that make you feel better?
So she's saying, when I'm 54, I won't be old. That makes me.
When you were my age, what was old?
Oh my God! I remember something about something. I did the math in my head, and I was like, "Oh my God, I'll be 26 then." Wow, that was old. When I was 33.
Yeah.
Are you 34 or are you 33?
I turned 34 this summer. Like, what was old?
40.
Get out of here.
Oh my God. Yes.
You thought 40 was old?
Yes.
No, 40's not old.
Well, I hope not. now that I'm well past that.
People starting families when they're 40.
Doesn't mean that it's not old. People are starting families in their 70s.
Who's starting families in their 70s?
That one president that has a grandson that's still alive.
Sometimes you do this thing where you'll make two comparisons, but like there's a much higher percentage of people starting families in their 40s than there are starting families in their 70s.
Impregnating someone doesn't mean you're not old.
That's not at all what I said.
You said starting families.
Yes, in their 40s. People start families in their 40s.
Dudes start families in their 70s.
They don't start them in their 70s. They continue them in their 70s.
Well, maybe some of them are starting.
That's my point. How many people are starting families in their 70s?
How many dudes had their first kid?
That's what I'm saying. You're not starting your family in your 70s.
Right.
You're continuing your family when you're 70.
Family with a new chick
in your 70s.
because she has to be 30.
Yeah, if they're on like the Rhea app and they have enough money to be on the Rhea app.
Very nice. No, I thought 40 was old. Listen, I think 50 is old, and I am creeping up on it. Hopefully, like November 3rd, I'm going to readjust my thinking. But
I don't think 40 is old.
It's easy for you. You're not even old enough to run for president yet.
I don't think 40 is old.
AARP stuff in the mail, and it is hard to think you're not old when the R is retired people. Right there. Isn't it the American Association of Retired People? It's something retired people.
So what's your definition of old then? Like getting AARP stuff in the mail? Like how do you define old?
That's a good question.
Because maybe it's not a number, just how do you define old?
Basketball like I did last night, and we're talking about how we can't get off the floor at all. Yes. Like getting up and down the floor is a problem, but getting vertical is impossible. So then I feel old.
Okay. But it's all context because if you went and played in like a 50 over league, you'd be like Michael Jordan.
I would crush it.
I used to say this all the time. I would be playing like at Loyal Sock with like the high school kids and stuff like that. And I used to joke all the time. I would feel old. I'd feel out of shape, like all this stuff. And then I would go play at like a men's league, like a men's rec. And I would feel like I was LeBron James. Like it's all context. It just all depends.
No, I do. I get it. I don't know. And you'll see, like, the older you get, and everyone that is middle-aged there are times that we feel really old.
Yeah.
And there are times when
you don't even think
mentally, I can't fathom the fact that I'm almost 50.
Right.
I still think a lot of the way, I mean, obviously I know more about the world. There's a lot of ways that I think differently than when I'm 22.
Sure.
But there's a lot of ways that I think the same when I'm 22. I still like the music is still the same. We still have the same crude humor. And if you get together with your college buddies or your high school buddies,
it doesn't make a difference.
The humor has not advanced. You are saying the same stupid stuff, and it's still making you laugh.
Right.
You just have now different stories. Then you talk about your kids, and you talk about real stuff, and But
yeah.
So yeah, that would be an interesting round table discussion to get both guys and girls.
What is old?
What is old?
I will tell you the first real old, because you when you're first graduating college, you joke about it, you'll make funny comments. Yeah. The first time I used to see or hear or read about second puberty, which is a real scientific thing. Have you heard?
I don't know what that is.
So second puberty, females and males both go through it at different times. For males, usually it's late 20s. And you start you have your hair, hair in your ears, you start to notice things you've never had to shave before you're shaving, you start to see the speckles of gray. It's a scientific thing. There is a second puberty for males, right?
So it's the beginning of the end.
It's the beginning of the end. You start to notice all of a sudden you're eating the same things and you're still doing the same exercises, but you're still gaining weight. You're just everything just shifts for you in the second puberty. And I hit I remember right before.
Hear me, by the way?
I think so.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Oh, trust me, they're not hearing me. You're doing all the talking. I remember right before I turned 30. There was a 2-month span. And at the end of it, I was oh crap. I that was second puberty. I was like, I hit it. And all of a sudden, like, the things I started to eat started affecting me. Like, I noticed just like different like hygiene, like grooming stuff, like it completely shifted. And that was the first time where I was like, I am getting old. Like, that was like the very first true like recognition, was like when it dawned on me that like I was hitting second puberty. A lot of people don't know there's a second puberty.
I didn't.
You didn't know that until today. Look, it's fascinating.
Know what the Knights of Templar was.
Neither do you still. I had to listen to you talk about it for 5 minutes and you still don't know.
Code? Isn't that what they taught?
Possibly. Maybe.
That protect?
I read Da Vinci Code 15 years ago.
But you've seen the movie.
I think I was like 20 when I read the Da Vinci Code.
I think they were the Knights of Templar.
Probably. Look it up. It's really interesting.
I will say it loudly in case no one can hear me, because you screwed up my microphone.
I did not screw it up. Why do you think I screwed it up? Okay, let's do. We are heading as a country with COVID into the fall. A lot of different ways. I don't know how in depth you want to get about it. I don't know if we want to talk about what we talked about earlier before we started the show. Let's do.
Those are our secret talks.
The secret talks. Those are the real thinking out loud. Let's say this. The stuff that we're going to talk about, I cannot advise people enough. Like, go read. Go research.
They just
form your own opinion.
80% of the people just tuned you out right there.
You think 80% of the people tune out all the time?
Well, they do, but of the 100% that were tuned in, 80% just tuned out. They're not going to go read and do research. They're going to scan through their feed to find what agrees with them, and they're going to like it, and they're going to repeat it.
All right. Well, let's talk about Shawshank Redemption then.
Wait, what happened to Shawshank?
Oh, nothing. I just saw the poster and like, there's no point talking about comments.
I was just making a joke. But it's a very interesting point you brought up before. So go ahead.
Well, no, again, I think we're to the point where it's saturated. I don't even like to talk about it. It's just like, I feel dumb not talking about it. Like,
there's so many fascinating angles still, and it's changing and evolving every day.
All the time. And the other part of it too is like, as much as we want to try to ignore it, at this point, it doesn't, like, I believe the virus is real. Like, I believe it's a problem. But at this point, like, regardless of if you try to make it a political situation, you don't, whatever your beliefs of COVID are, like, you're going to deal with it. Because, like, it just came out, New York City's doing the vaccination passport. San Francisco recently just joined them. So they are the first two major cities now where, in order to do specific indoor activities, you must show your vaccination card in order to do it. New York City's is a little more restrictive than San Francisco's right now. New York City, you can't get into a gym, you can't go work out. The majority of dining restaurants you cannot get into for indoor dining. And it's going to be very similar with San Francisco. So it's almost past the point of like your take on COVID. It's really to the point of like your take of what should you be allowed to do and not do, regardless of vaccinated or unvaccinated. Can you imagine? Can you imagine walking downtown and trying to get in somewhere, and you cannot get in because you don't have your vaccination card?
It's a dangerous. It's a slippery slope for society. It is a very dangerous thing.
It is,
and I know that.
And we are both vaccinated. Like, we're not saying that as like unvaccinated. Like
and I am, well, that's a whole different topic. It is just a slippery slope. I am vaccinated. I am pro-vaccinated. All my kids are vaccinated. My mom's vaccinated. My ex-wife is vaccinated. But I'm also, I'd say, intelligent enough to understand that we don't really know how good the vaccine is. We don't really know the how long it's going to last. You and I were talking. You were reading stuff to me, and I learned a lot before the show. And so I don't. Is this going to be the only vaccine? How long is this vaccine going to work?
Yeah.
One of the comments that you made, and then I'll let you run with it. I'll feed this to you as the intro, and then you go from there. That one of the doctors that you had read about, and there are many medical doctors, scientists who have no political agenda, who are slaves to the science. And all they care about is the science of it, and they're trying to learn this as best they can. They have no agenda above and beyond.
Yes.
And the one guy said, this is much more like the flu, and the reason you get a flu shot every year is because the flu strand changed, and it morphs, and it adapts.
Right.
Because as Jeff Goldblum said, nature always finds a way.
Yes.
And that's why they figure out which flu is coming this year, and they give you the proper flu shot that they think is going to help.
Yeah.
So COVID, as we see, is adapting and surviving. And this may not be a one-time inoculation like polio or chickenpox.
Right.
This may be you go to the doctor, you get instead of a flu shot, you get a COVID shot.
Yeah. It's so again, research for yourself, form your own opinion. These are just some of the things that like I've noticed on both sides, like regardless of how you feel about it. But one of the things that's being discussed right now by scholars and doctors across the country, and a lot of them are afraid to come out, which is a whole other topic and a whole other thing we'll probably talk about before we leave today. But one of the things that they're discussing in these like scholarly articles is the idea of we're never going to get a 100% vaccination. So it's not so much does the mask work or not work, but there's this concept now of if you are somebody who has worn a mask for the last 2 years and has decided not to get vaccinated, it doesn't matter if you take off the mask 3 days from now or you take off the mask 3 years from now, they are saying that you are going to get COVID. So unless you commit to wearing the mask for the rest of your life unvaccinated, you will get COVID at some point, is the point that they're making. Which, like, when I read that, it makes a ton of sense to me. Like, to me, that makes sense.
Science makes sense.
So
because it is airborne.
Yes.
That's the key of the article.
Yes. So the other point that they're also making is if we are only going to have so many of us get vaccinated and so many of us are going to make the decision to stay unvaccinated, which again, I am pro freedom of choice. Like I really do not mind if someone decides whether or not they do it. That's just my opinion.
When you say freedom of choice, you're talking abortion.
No, let's not dive into that yet.
Sorry.
We've survived cancel culture a couple of times in the last month. I'm not quite ready for that conversation.
No? Okay.
But the point that they're making on top of like, at some point, if you're unvaccinated and you take the mask, like you're going to get it. So like you're either going to have to get vaccinated or get COVID. Those are your two choices. The other thing that they're talking about in these articles is the idea of if only so many people are going to get vaccinated. There is, and again, I'm not a doctor, look it up, research, make your own opinion. There is this idea of you're speeding up the process or the mutations or the development of the different strands of COVID. So for example, you're only like, if a virus is working, it never has to mutate. However, if a virus
has a host,
it always has a host and everything else. So there is this idea that if only so many are vaccinated and it tries to work, it mutates, it gets stronger, it goes again, it mutates, and you have these different strands. So for example, you go from COVID to Delta, you go from Delta to Delta plus. So what they're saying is there are scholars and there are doctors out there who are basically floating out the concept that are we actually to the point where enough of us are vaccinated that we're actually helping the strand process faster? Like it's actually being able to work. Yes. So there's this idea also of like, I've told you before, I think people are kind of sick of the middle road. Like we're never all going to agree on this.
Right.
So there is this kind of idea of like, all of a sudden everybody getting vaccinated or nobody getting vaccinated. Doctors and scholars are kind of saying that may have been a better process than half and half is what they're saying now.
I can see that.
So we're just getting to this point in this process where answers are now harder to find. It's really, really complicated. I'm diving into different things almost like, I don't want to say daily, because like I do have like a life where I'm not worried about pandemics and viruses, but we are to the point now where finding this stuff is hard. It's really, really hard.
Well, and part of the reason that it's hard, not to cut you off, and we're 50 minutes in, so no one's watching anymore.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons it's hard is a topic that you brought up beforehand is these people are afraid to speak out. The pure scientists who have these scientific-based opinions that are not politically backed or are not politically motivated, they're afraid to speak out of what they've learned because they know there will be backlash,
Right.
both from the radicals of society and the higher ups who, like, if a guy comes out and says, listen, if you wear the mask now or you wear the mask, if you wear the mask for 2 years and then stop, you're still going to get COVID because it ain't going away.
Right.
So do the political world crush down on this guy because, like, that's not the message we want to send out.
Right.
We want to keep sending this message, go get vaccinated. Because, yes, if everyone got vaccinated, we think we could make it go away like they did with polio, essentially. And they have eradicated some of these. But this is a different form. This is airborne. And as Jerry was talking about, they're viruses that are carried by animals we've never been able to get rid of them.
Right.
So, yes, there are lots of interesting angles to it, but the fact that these, egghead scholars who've devoted their whole life to this are finding things and they're afraid to express it because somewhere there's backlash coming.
Yeah. The amazing part is, like, they're not even saying they have the answer. They're just simply saying, like, hey, this is, like, we've studied it. Here's the results of it. And this is why we think it might be happening. And so, like, the fact that it's not like they're coming out and being like, this is what's happening. And here's the answer. Like, go put your mask on. Or here's what's happening. And this is the answer. Stay unvaccinated. Like, they have no actual, like, agenda to push, but they're terrified to actually say what they found. So the frustrating part is, like, if you're trying to make choices and you're trying to make decisions and you're trying to find this stuff, it's infuriating because there are really smart people out there getting results and finding out, like, here's what we think, and they're afraid to tell you.
Well,
like, the smartest people in our country are almost at a point where they're afraid to, like, people have to listen to two knuckleheads like you and I because the smartest people in the room are afraid of the backlash of their results and what they found.
But isn't it also ironic? Isn't this a microcosm of life that the smartest people on the subject who've spent their whole life studying the subject are coming out and saying, listen, we don't have the answers. We don't know where this is going, but these are things that you should be aware of.
Yeah.
Where all these geniuses that are just walking around, that have a normal job, that have never worked, that have never studied a pandemic in their life, they have all the answers.
Yeah.
The smart people are coming out and saying, we don't know, but this is what we've learned. But you go on Facebook and there are lots of people who know everything.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of the irony of it too.
Absolutely. So the other part is, and we had talked about this, there's a video going around of an Indiana doctor. And it's, like, had over 1 million views. Different people are pushing it out. He spoke in front of an Indiana school board, and he basically talked about a lot of the things that you and I just talked about, right? Like, he gave his opinion on kind of, like, you're never actually going to cure COVID. You're never actually going to be able to solve the stuff. Like, a mask may be able to slow it down, but it, like, at the end of the day, like, when you take it off, like, you're going to end up getting COVID if you're unvaccinated. And then he talked a lot about how vaccinations, like, it should be more like a flu shot, was basically his take. Like, the longer COVID goes on, the less likely your vaccination is to work, whether you like it or not.
Because of the way it will mutate to survive.
Like, just at some point. Now, it doesn't mean the vaccination doesn't help. It doesn't mean that you aren't more protected than somebody that isn't unvaccinated, but that's just it. That just makes sense, right? The stronger something gets, the less likely your vaccination is to work. And fact checkers came out, and they tried to tear it apart. But the way they try to tear it apart is, like, they tried to nitpick these little things that were not the true basis of what he was saying. So they tried to, like, say the 80% of what he's talking about, which isn't, like, absurd things, ignore that because these little nitpicky things, he was only, like, partially correct.
It's like when you're arguing with your girlfriend.
You can dive into that. So we're just to the point. It has nothing to do with what the doctor in Indiana actually said. My frustration comes from, like, we are to the point where finding correct information on this stuff is hard because people almost don't want to admit that they don't know. Like, there's so many times where you and I will come on here and we'll be like, I don't know. Like, that's tough. Like, that's hard. Like, I don't know what I would do in that situation, or I don't know how I feel about it, or, like, I'm thinking out loud, or I'm on the fence about it. There are so many people now that they're afraid to come out and, like, actually, like, just say, I don't know. Like, I'm unsure of how this is going to play out.
That are like that. There are people who they'll never ask anyone else's opinion. They never look at, they have the answer. And when the question is posed to them, they have to give an answer.
Yeah.
And they can't just say, well, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah.
There are people that just are wired that way that just can't do it. And this is probably made it worse.
Yes, it's definitely made it harder. But that's the same thing. Like when you and I start talking, like the first thing I say is like, please, like go read, like make your own opinion. Like this is just the stuff that I'm reading, and this is stuff. And like I've told you before, like a lot of times when I read something, it is not a media article. Like I know that's probably bad for us. Like I'm not really promoting us very well right now. But like a lot of times when I'm reading something, like it's Department of Justice, it's from John Hopkins. Like it's like I'm trying to find like, I want to go straight to the source. From Emily Watson, no, but I'm trying to kind of skip the middleman, like I'm kind of trying to get to the original source of it and trying to figure out what's happening. And what I'm saying is like, A, it's getting harder to do that. It's getting really hard to do that. Mm-hmm. And B is like, not only when you find it, it's now becoming really hard for people to talk about it. Like it's hard for these doctors and for these different people to like just come out and say like, here's what we found, because they're so afraid that when they say that, like people are going to immediately say like, well, you just wanted people to put their mask on, or you just wanted people to stay unvaccinated, or so it's almost like these people can't come out and say like what their results were, like what they're finding. That's a terrifying place that we're in.
Yes, I agree.
Smart people are afraid now to speak up.
So let me ask you this before we go.
Yeah.
2 questions. Well, this is the first, and you don't know the answer. I'm going to throw this out. The rhetorical one. We may be at a point because the airborne and indoor outdoor is certainly different. Mm-hmm. Are we going to spend basketball seasons, wrestling seasons, indoor concert seasons wearing masks? Does that become a normal trend?
Well, if I'm just answering that question on face value, I would say yes. However, this goes back to what we had talked about like 2 weeks ago. Like I think like I am fascinated what society is going to do the next 2 months, because I think the state of Pennsylvania, I think there's going to be a majority of people that just like it doesn't matter what the state says.
Here.
Yes.
In the cities, I think it'll be different.
Sure. But I think like in the majority of like PA, like there's going to be people that just go like, nope, like I'm good. Like I'm not doing that. Like you can mandate it. You can try to shut it down. I think you're going to find a lot of people. And again, I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just simply saying like, that's what I think society is going to do. And like I said, we're going to find out a lot of answers about society here in the next 2 months. A lot.
Do you think, like right now, I think we're very mimic to last year. In the summer, COVID was still something we saw on TV. Yes. It didn't affect us here. We didn't believe it here. And then it really hit in the fall when people started going indoors. Because here, we're outdoors and we're so spread.
Sure.
Do you think during football, soccer, I think things will be fine for the most part because they're outdoors and they're spread.
Yep.
And I think we will treat the fall sports like, do you think during basketball, wrestling, we're going to get stuck with the contact tracing again? Teams are out. Games are canceled.
Again, I
think that's where we're headed.
I think they're going to try. I think the question last year, the question was, what's the PIAA going to do? What's the school board going to do? What's the state going to do? Right? Like that was the question because it was our first time going through it. I think the question this time is going to be like, will people follow through? And I think people's willingness to follow through is going to decline severely compared to last year.
Are going to follow through, I think.
Okay.
You don't think?
We'll see. That's the point I'm making. That is the point I'm making.
Okay.
I think the question has shifted. Last year, it was everyone was waiting from the top down. And it was like, we're going to wait to see what the state says. We're going to wait to see what the PIAA says. Like we did the show when the PIAA announced that they were going to have sports. And so everyone was waiting and kind of, I think this year it's going to be the opposite. I think there's a lot of schools that are already saying like, we're not going to wait. Like this is what we're doing.
Well, because like my son who was in 8th grade last year was contact traced 4 times during basketball season and never ended up with COVID. Mm-hmm. But he sat by the wrong kid in class. He was in the wrong with this and he was wrong, because that's what they would do. Kid test positive and they go to each class. Yeah. And depending on where you sat. So we talked about this too off the air. There are how teams handle it. Do you say Shamokin, the varsity and the JV never practiced together?
Correct. They treated them as two separate entities.
I know at Montoursville with they for years now they've had a soccer player kick.
Yeah.
Last year they didn't because they didn't want to cross contaminate. If one kid on either team tested positive, they were afraid they'd shut both teams down.
Yep.
So they kept them both separate.
I just think last year, if you were a parent, you were waiting on the school to kind of tell you what was going to happen. If you were a school, you were waiting on the state to kind of tell you what. I think this year it's almost going to be the inverse. I think the state's going to try to tell the school, and the school may be like, we're good. And I think the school may try to tell the parent, and the parent might be like, nah, we're good. I just think it's flipped a little bit, and I'm curious to see how that works.
And I wonder too, especially with athletes, because they realize now that I don't want to say kids are losing their careers, and not that it's the end of the world, but for these kids that are juniors and seniors, and this is it. I think with a lot of the contact tracers, they'll send them right away.
Sure.
And if even if you're sitting next to so and so, if you go test and you test negative, then you're going to be allowed to play until you show symptoms. And
sure.
If you show symptoms, now you have to go test again.
Yeah.
But they're not going to just send a kid home for 10 days. And academically, it's brutal.
Well, the crazy one, like you keep bringing up sports, and yes, fans are crucial in a sport environment. But even when you remove the fans, like we did last year and before, there's a clock, there's a score, there's a winner, there's a loser. Right. But there's so many other functions of society and school where you need an audience. If you don't have an audience, what are you really doing? So you think about school plays and concerts and things like that. If you don't have an audience, if you're a junior musician or you're a senior drama kid, without an audience, what are we doing? How are you able to really do that stuff? So it's the whole perspective of it. The kids in the functions where an audience is very, very crucial to what you are actually doing. Because like I said, don't get me wrong, I would have loved to have had fans last year. But at the end of the day, when we went into the locker room at the end of the game, we got to play the whole game. There was a score. We knew how we played, and everything was okay. But if I'm if I'm first trombone, or if I'm the lead in the play, what have I been doing for the last,
right.
2 school years? It's
and you guys
tough.
won state championships. So what do you care? You don't care.
That has nothing to do with
whatever. I like how you got coming off a state championship. Oh, there's a winner and a loser. Yeah, what do you guys know about losing?
This is
lost 2 games in 2 years.
This is pretty great. Gary says, with great respect, Jeff, and I certainly don't want to throw you off your marvelous and lightning game, but you should try to reduce the number of likes in your public speaking. I have told, so there's
you say a lot. You say
all the time. There's what was the other one? There was another one that I've been told that I throw it out there all the time.
Funny. You throw this stuff out, and I want to fire out profanity. I almost gave you the finger a couple minutes ago. I was I probably shouldn't do that.
No, probably
because
not.
You said something insulting to me, and that was my first reaction. And then I was
so no, Gary, I agree. Gary, I couldn't agree with you more. So there's another one that I cannot think of. Fascinating. So it was either my cousin or my girlfriend or somebody said they counted. I said fascinating 15 times in one show.
We used to have we had the youth pastor in our church, and he would do the prayer.
Yeah.
He would say Father.
Yeah.
Like God the Father. He said it in every sentence. He would start sentences and Father, we ask you, Father, and then it got to the point where I would just count. And I'd be oh, here comes prayer time. And
sure.
I'd just be 7, 8, 9. And you're really? He said Father 11 times in one prayer? Yes.
Right.
Because in most prayers, in the Lord's Prayer, our Father, it's the second word, but that's it. It shows up once. He says it like you said
Yeah.
And it is fun. And you don't realize it. I didn't notice it until when I rewatch something.
Sure.
Then I hear it.
The other one,
you say that a lot.
The other one is so you're talking, and at the end of it, you'll go, Do you do that, or you haven't noticed?
No, I didn't notice that.
I've noticed that a lot of times, like if I'm having a conversation with someone, I'll like almost like to verify that like they get it. I'll be like, and I'll do that
I
at
was
the end of
thinking on
like
the other
every.
side, when someone asks you something and you're kind
No,
of
no, no.
paying attention.
So like if I like we went to this baseball game, the crosscutters, and the fourth inning, they bring out the like you just keep saying like to verify
to make sure they're keeping up.
to kind of like I don't know, you just keep saying. So I've also noticed I will say this: the hardest part about what we like kind of getting on here, this is very unscripted. So like I don't we don't have notes. There's no notes. There's no how many times I say it. Yeah. We don't have notes.
Well,
there's no screen or template. There's no bullet points. So a lot of times it is off the top of the head. So that I don't want to call it a stall, but you got to find something to help you kind of alleviate to get it to where you need to go.
We are going to go to PetSmart. I'm going to get you a shock collar.
That's awful.
And every time you say I'm going to buzz you. And you're...
This is the weird part, though. Like you said it today, would you have noticed?
I don't notice until I don't notice.
Yeah.
But there's a kid on our team, a good friend of my son's, who is worse than you. I can't not notice.
Okay.
Because he just, like in the middle of a prepositional phrase, he'll throw the word like in. It is unbelievable how often he says it. And the kids make fun of him, and he knows it, and he says, "Yeah, I know, I say it all the time."
You can't help it.
No. You say however much you think you say it even more.
Probably.
So you're not as bad as he is.
Well, I don't know if that's a compliment, but thank you.
I guess it's a little bit of a compliment. You do say a lot, but that's
right.
okay.
Anything else you want to touch on today before we go?
Did I want to say something? I think Cedric Mullins has 20-game hit streak for the Orioles.
I did not know. Chris Davis retired.
I got to call my brother. I saw it and I was going to text him. I think he just left a lot of money on the table. And I'm not sure.
To walk away, you mean?
Yeah, because I'm not sure. He had one. Well, he at least had 2 more months on this year's contract.
Right.
I think he had another year. And it's the worst contract in baseball history. When they signed him, he had come off a couple mammoth seasons. Okay. And he hasn't gotten a hit since. But I don't know. I don't know if he just gave them $20 million back. Now his deal was for $154 million or something.
Sure.
So the guy ain't broke.
Right.
But if all you had to do was sit there and collect your money and not say the words "I retire," I don't know how that works. Maybe he worked out a deal. Maybe he gets paid anyway. But so I got to find that out.
For Mark, since he's into baseball and I've umpired for him, why are the umpires required to wear a mask, but coaches, players, and fans do not? Do you know the answer to that?
You mean like a Little League?
I don't know. I don't know in general.
I don't know. I do know umpires wore some masks last year. When I umpired last year, I did not wear a mask.
Okay.
So I don't know where umpires were required to wear a mask.
He might be referring to the. I was going to say he might be referring to the MLB.
The year before, they're not wearing them this year, are they?
I haven't noticed.
Maybe they wore them last year. And to answer his question, because people make a lot of rules and they don't really know what they're doing, and I think a lot of rules are just to look good. I think what's going to happen, back to our point about winter sports, I think what's going to happen this year is, maybe even not this year, but in going forward, it's going to basically be like, if you go to an indoor event, the odds of picking up anything, whether it's the common cold or anything, is greater than at an outdoor event.
Right.
So if you want to come to the wrestling match or you want to come to the basketball game, come at your own risk.
Sure.
And there are going to be people, especially the elderly, who stay away or who come with their mask on. But they're not going to that's where I think society is going to. Here are the risks. You know the risks. If you don't, as opposed to the New York City restaurant, you need to have your card to get in.
Right.
It's going to be, if you want to run the risk, run the risk. That's where I think we're going.
We have tickets for a Broadway show in November and already know we have to show proof of vaccination in order to
What
get
show?
in. It's a good question.
You've been to Broadway?
Hmm?
What'd you say?
Fiddler on the Roof. Fiddler on the Roof. I think I saw Beauty and the Beast. I believe I saw Lion King. We used to go to New York City every Black Friday. Like my aunt and my mom would take like all the kids and we would go and we would typically see like some sort of play on Broadway.
Because I can't imagine the city's overrun on Black Friday.
We saw White Christmas one year. We've seen some pretty like very like your standard Broadway shows.
The only time I took my daughters when we saw Mean Girls, and it could not have been better. Why are you laughing?
I've never heard you tell this story.
I wanted to take my daughters to Broadway because my one daughter is really into it, and my other daughter is not as into it, but thinks it's cool.
Okay.
And I had a friend help me out who's like a Broadway expert, and I actually went to her house, and I'm like, I don't know how to order tickets. I don't know anything. Here's my credit card. What do we do? And she started scrolling through, and I'm thinking, it's like the movie theater. There's 6 shows, there's 8 shows, there's 10 shows. There are 40,000 shows that you can pick from. And she is scrolling and scrolling. I was like, there's a Mean Girls musical? And she's like, of course there's a reviews are great and whatever, and that's what we got. So 5 minutes before I bought the tickets, I didn't even know it existed.
Yeah.
And then the only reason it took 5 minutes is because we had to figure out a date and a time and when they were available and stuff like that.
Nice.
But if you get a chance to see that one, it is fun.
It's worthwhile. I've heard we almost went and saw School of Rock, and then I forget what happened. We ended up not going, but I've heard School of Rock is great.
The next one I would want to see, of course, is Rock of Ages.
Yeah.
Because.
Well, that's right up your alley.
Yes.
All right. Anything else? What am I forgetting?
I don't think so. What do we have? What do we want to mention? Wasn't today the day that Trump was supposed to be reinstated? According to legend.
It came across my phone, but I don't know. We can talk about it, but I don't know that for a fact.
I think that's just according to legend. It was today.
It came across my phone. I don't know if it was a QAnon theory or where it came from, but I think today was one of the days that he was supposed to be reinstated. So when I was scrolling through like social media, it came up as like a fact checker, like incorrect. Trump was not reinstated today.
But it was
August 13th.
Whenever these things started coming out, it was the Trump will be reinstated in August. Okay. So I don't know they picked a real day, and I didn't know why it was today.
Yeah.
But we heard that.
Well, it's true. Yeah, I mean, as I'm going through the trending topics, I just it came because it'll always have like these fact check things and things that are being spread that, are they true or not true, things like that. And the very first one at the top, I kind of chuckled because that was says not true. Trump was not reinstated as president of the United States.
Well, there's still, it's only 1:30.
It is it's early.
Friday news dump.
It's early. We might have to come back and do a Saturday one, depending on what happens.
Yeah, I'll be in the swamp, so you'll be with that. Unless I'll do it remotely from Jersey.
All right. I have 2 days to practice.
Practice what?
Not saying like. 2 days.
We'll see how it goes.
I'm gonna curb it in 2 days.
We'll see.
You'll see.
You should replace it with some swear word.
Well, so this is the funny part, because now that you say that, don't you think that's what I'm doing?
No.
You don't think I'm doing the inverse? Okay.
Because you wouldn't swear that much. I'm around you in normal time.
I don't swear that much, but like you said, like sometimes like you have to catch yourself.
Do you ever go back and listen?
To the shows?
Yeah.
I do it when I have to like write down all of our stuff, because we have like a ledger essentially, right, of all our shows. So as like the link in case we have to repost it, has like the embedding in case we put on the site, and then for like the winners and different things. So as I'm doing that, sometimes I will rehear the show as I'm getting this all.
I learned this during radio. It was really hard to re-listen to the show. There are parts you liked.
Mm-hmm.
I've much more enjoyed re-listening to my live sports broadcasts than to talk. Because when you hear something like Emily Watson, and the second time when you hear it recorded,
you're
like, oh my God, it's Emma Watson. I can't believe I said that. And then you might say it again, or then when you hear it, you catch it. But when you say
it's too
it,
late.
And then questions like, how much stuff do I say in real life that's wrong? And I don't even grab it, and I just go on, and people just let it go, and then they think I'm stupid because I'm talking about Emily Watson, and it wasn't her. So,
right.
So yeah, it's listening to your own shows is sometimes humble.
Oh, that's 100%. Well, that's why like I threw it up on the screen right away and started laughing because I was like, Gary's right. Like Gary is 100. Gary is 100% right.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what.
Hey, but we love you anyway.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Ken Madison.
No, actually, let me take that back. We like you anyway.
Thank you.
See what I did there?
Thank you.
You see what I did?
I see what you did
I thought it
there.
was clever.
Ken Madison was our first, he was our first true fan of the show. Is that the way to say it?
Sure.
I mean, a true fan gives critical.
Yes.
Every day. So Ken, if you're still out there, we're still big fans. Our newest fan might be Shelby. Shelby might be the new Ken.
I think so.
Shelby might be the new Ken. So Shelby, we are out there. We love you. So please keep coming back. We will see you guys tomorrow. Thank you to all of our sponsors. No, we won't. Monday. We'll see you Monday.
Because today's Friday, which is bad luck.
Unless there's major news later today.
Yes. But what's Friday the 13th? This could be the end. One of these, if the world comes to an end, it's happening on Friday the 13th. It just has to.
You think so?
That would be perfectly scripted.
Well, yes.
Do you? I'll just throw this out there because this is stupid, and of course, no one is listening now.
Nobody. They all left.
What do you think? Like, do you watch the scary movie on Friday the 13th? There have to be people out there who think,
sure.
"Oh, it's Friday the 13th. I'm going to watch it."
There's people that do that in October. Like, I never watch scary stuff, but every October,
Halloween.
we'll try to pick a thing that we watch, like in the spirit of October.
I wonder how many people there have to be. For example, I watch It's a Wonderful Life every Christmas Eve. There have to be those horror people who watch one, because weren't there like 9 sequels to Friday the 13th?
There's a lot.
Because how often Friday the 13th comes up twice a year?
That I don't know. I didn't know there was like an actual pattern.
There has to be. Well, there's 7 days in a week, and there's a 13th of every month. So mathematically speaking, it'd be one every. So I think it's something like about twice a year.
But wait, time out. I feel stupid now. Because that would get thrown off by the calendar.
Yeah, it's not a perfect cycle.
Correct.
But mathematically, I think that would be my rationale.
Because you don't always reset after 30 or 31.
Correct.
And then so your 1 shifts, which then throws off your 13. I'm just saying, I don't think there's a pattern.
I get your point because I think, but that's in 1 month.
See, I don't think there's a pattern.
My mother's birthday is November 25th.
Okay.
And I think she has told me that it's not on Thanksgiving. It's like once every 11 years or something. It's not as often as you would think.
Okay.
That some days Thanksgiving falls more than others. That's what she told me. Maybe it's wrong.
Okay.
But I do, because of leap year, because of stuff, and
right.
Does it mess it up? I don't know. It's a good question. But I still wonder how many people out there are watching Friday the 13th every Friday the 13th.
There are definitely people doing it. Last year, we did Stranger Things through the month of October.
Which is awesome.
Because we had never watched it before. Awesome. Really good choice.
All of them?
We watched all of them. We had never watched it before. At season 1, episode 1, all the way to where we are now, end of season 3. Waiting for season 4, which he's alive, in case you didn't know.
It's this fall, isn't it coming back?
I believe so.
I think so too. Because they were filming and then they shut it because of COVID.
Correct.
I think it's okay.
I can't
wait.
And then the October before, we did The Haunting of Hill House on Netflix.
Hill House? House Hill?
Yeah, The Haunting of Hill House.
Oh, that's what it's called?
Yes.
Never heard.
I hate scary movies, shows, whatever else. So good. Really, really good. Yes.
I tried to watch American Horror Story.
Yeah. Never watched any of them.
I watched one, I think.
Okay.
That was all right.
It was all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously it's a unique genre, but there is something you either connect with it or you do not. There's not a lot of middle ground on the horror genre.
I am much more into the psychological thriller than the general blood and guts. Somebody's getting a knife through their throat.
The slasher. You're more into
Yeah,
thriller
I'm
than
more
the
of a
slasher.
Sixth Sense. What was the other one? Fight Club. Those where they're just kind of darker and there's a.
Shutter Island.
I didn't like Shutter Island.
That's weird. Why do you like Shutter
I
Island?
didn't like Shutter Island. We talked about just suspense, not necessarily, and we talked about Sleeping with the Enemy, which you still haven't watched yet.
No, I haven't. I need to watch
Ones
that
like
and The
those are
Heathers.
good. That's what I.
Okay.
As opposed to the straight.
I get it.
And I just watched one the other day, and I talked to you about this as Disturbia, which I'd never seen before.
It's good. Underrated.
I thought it was underrated too. A very young Shia LaBeouf.
Yes.
And that I wouldn't say that was a horror movie. I would say that was a
Thriller.
thriller.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you guys for watching. Thanks to all our sponsors. Be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all your local news.
We just talked for an hour and 20 minutes.
I know you don't shut up.
You know how many people listen?
I don't know what to tell you. Like you just keep talking.
Sorry.
I saw our guy Joe Garrison at the Crosscutters home finale the other day, and he did tell me to tell you that you need to shut up and let me talk.
I was going to say Joe's a good guy, and I'm taking that back.
Spoken. Mark actually did say to me before the show, spoken like somebody who's behind the camera.
Did you ever hear this story?
I don't know.
But,
I don't know what the story is.
And then I will shut up, and everyone can go back about it. But nobody's listening anyway, so we.
Okay.
It is the year. So it's well, they didn't have a Little League World Series last year.
Okay.
So it was 2 years ago. So it's 19 when COVID had not arrived yet. The world was still. Mike had gotten inducted into the Hall of Fame in July, and he's on the Little League board, so he's here.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I am here with North Central PA, and we have press credentials. So I'm over there, and I think it was the day we interviewed the softball team, maybe it was when the South Williamsport girls went to the Little League World Series.
Okay.
So anyway, I'm over there, and Joe Garrison comes up to me, and it's probably the first time I've seen Joe since Mike was inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Okay.
And he looks at me, he says, "Hey, is there any chance I could grab a couple minutes with Mike?"
Okay.
I said, "Yeah, probably. When do you want to do it?" And he goes, "Well, I was hoping to do it right after he throws out the first pitch." And I looked at him and I said, "Is Mike throwing out the first pitch today?" And he just put his head down and walked away. I was like, I didn't even know he was here. So I'm sitting in the crowd. My daughter, who's now in college, was an usher for a summer job at the Series. Mike goes walking out. I had no idea he was there. I had no idea he was doing it. He goes walking out on the field. I get a text from my daughter that says, "Hey, look, Uncle Mike's here." So none of us had any.
That's very great.
And Joe's like, nice family communication.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know he was coming. Like, he wasn't going to tell me, hey, guess what? Like, he's pitched in the World Series. Throwing out a first pitch in front of a Little League game, it's kind of, it pales.
Didn't want to waste your time.
So, anyway.
All right.
That's my Joe Garrison.
Nice. Tell everyone to have a great day.
What if I don't want to have a great day?
You do.
What if I want to have a mediocre day?
You want them to have a great day.
I do want you to have a great day.
I know.
Go have a great day. Unlike Jeff, who is going to have a mediocre day.
I'm going to have a good one.
Are you?